Everybody wants to act like they're doing something big because they're always on the move, always busy, always running, but let's call it what it is. Some of you are running in circles and calling it progress. You post your hustle, you brag about your long hours, but deep down you know something ain't adding up. You're tired, you're worn out, but what exactly have you built? What have you solved? What changed because of all your activity? Being busy isn't the same as being effective. Busyness can actually be a disguise, an excuse you wear so you don't have to face the fact that you're not making real moves. Real impact requires stillness, strategy, and focus. But stillness scares most people because when you're still, the noise fades and the truth shows up. You can't hide in chaos forever. At some point, you have to sit with your schedule and ask yourself the question that most won't dare touch. Am I moving towards something, or am I just moving? That's where it begins. That uncomfortable silence is where growth starts. Most people never want to face that silence. They keep themselves distracted so they don't have to feel the weight of being unaligned. But if you're serious about rising, you've got to stop celebrating chaos and start measuring results. Are you growing, or are you just grinding? Are you solving anything, or are you just spinning plates? It's easy to look like you're productive when your hands are full, but full hands with an empty purpose, that's just noise, that's burnout waiting to happen. You've got to audit your effort. If you worked 12 hours today, what came out of it that actually moved the needle? What system got better? What vision moved forward? What problem got solved? Or did you just wake up and start reacting to everything that hit your phone, everything that hit your desk, everything that hit your mind? Because if you're living in a reactive state 24/7, you're not leading, you're drowning with style, you're performing busyness like a badge, when deep down you're begging for breakthrough. Stop falling in love with chaos. Chaos isn't noble. Chaos is usually just the result of a lack of planning, a lack of boundaries, a lack of clarity, and clarity doesn't come from speed, it comes from intention. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters. You can sprint 10 miles in the wrong direction and still end up nowhere. Or you can walk 1 mile with purpose and end up where you were destined to be. But that takes discipline, that takes reflection. That takes confronting the fact that being busy has become your hiding place. It's a mask you wear to avoid the responsibility of deep, focused, meaningful work. The kind of work that doesn't get likes. The kind of work that doesn't go viral. The kind of work that changes everything. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is check your phone. Not to create, not to plan, not to visualize your goals, but to respond. Notifications, emails, missed calls, DMs. From the moment your eyes open, you're in reaction mode. And you don't even realize it because it feels normal. But let me ask you something real. Who's running your day? Who's calling the shots? Is it your vision, or is it the latest emergency? Because if you're always reacting, you're not in control. You're not leading your life. You're letting life lead you like a puppet on strings. People talk about leadership like it's this flashy position, this glamorous title, but real leadership starts before the world even sees you. It starts in your private decisions. It starts with what you choose to give your energy to. If every single day you're starting from behind, putting out fires, catching up on missed tasks, apologizing for delays, you're not leading, you're surviving, and survival mode will trick you into thinking you're doing something valuable. It'll convince you that every ping, every alert, every meeting is urgent. But urgency is not always importance. Just because something demands your attention doesn't mean it deserves your attention. You've got to be able to step back and ask, is this moving me forward, or is this just pulling me in? You can't lead a business, a family, or a movement if you're emotionally exhausted from chasing chaos. Some of you are so used to being in emergency mode that peace feels uncomfortable. You've trained yourself to need the rush of problems to feel alive, but problems should be solved, not worshipped. You've made crisis your comfort zone. You've made distractions your default, and the danger of that mindset is that you become addicted to fixing things that never should have been broken in the first place, because you didn't take time to prepare, to think, to lead with intention. Leadership isn't loud. Leadership is clarity in the middle of noise. It's being able to look past the fire and say, this isn't my fight. It's knowing what's urgent for them might not be important for you. And when you know that, when you start filtering your energy through a lens of purpose, you stop jumping every time something shakes. You stop flinching at every email. You stop sprinting to every bell that rings like you're in survival boot camp. You start owning your time. You start making people wait if it means protecting your peace. That's not selfish, that's leadership, because a reactive leader is a liability. They're unstable, unreliable, and always 2 steps behind. You don't want to build anything on a shaky foundation like that. You don't want to be that person who's always out of breath, always catching up, always too tired to dream. Dreaming requires space. Planning requires stillness. Impact requires vision, and vision doesn't live in the chaos. It lives in the calm before the storm, in the clarity you create when you choose to respond with purpose instead of reacting out of panic every time you chase another emergency, every time you rush into another situation trying to fix what's already burning. You're not strategizing, you're scrambling, and the crazy part, you think that's leadership. You think being the a firefighter makes you valuable. But what if I told you that the fire isn't the issue? What if I told you the real problem is the system, or the lack of one? Fires don't start by themselves. Fires are symptoms, they're results. They're proof that something upstream was ignored, overlooked, or never built right in the first place. And now, because the foundation is weak, you're stuck in a cycle of crisis control instead of purpose-driven execution. See, when you're constantly reacting to fires, you're actually validating broken systems. You're enabling dysfunction by making it comfortable. You've become the hero in a disaster you helped create, maybe not intentionally, but passively, by never slowing down long enough to build structure. You can't call yourself a problem solver if you keep putting yourself in the same chaotic situations over and over. Solving problems means eliminating the root, not just treating the symptoms. But most people don't want to deal with the root because it's slow, it's not sexy, and it doesn't come with applause. No one claps for prevention. No one posts about all the fires that never happened. But real greatness lies in the prevention. Real mastery shows up in the systems no one sees. You've got to decide. Do you want to look important, or do you want to be effective? Do you want to play the hero or build a structure so strong you don't have to rescue anyone, including yourself? Most people can't answer that honestly because being needed feels good. It feeds your ego, but here's the truth. Being constantly needed might mean you're failing to delegate, failing to lead, failing to systematize. If every situation requires your presence to survive, you haven't built an organization. You've built a cage and you're stuck inside it. It's not about being everywhere. It's about making sure the right things work even when you're not there. Systems are what separate hustlers from builders. Anyone can grind for a while. Anyone can put out a few fires. But what happens when you're gone for a week? Does everything fall apart? Then you didn't build a business. You built a fire trap. And you're calling that success. It's not. Real leaders architect solutions that last. Real leaders create blueprints that prevent chaos before it starts. You've got to stop being addicted to the urgency and start getting obsessed with design. Firefighting feels noble, but it's not scalable. You only have so much energy. You only have so many hours, and if all your time is being spent solving the same problems, week after week, year after year, then what you're doing isn't leadership, it's damage control. You weren't born to stay stuck in the same loop. You weren't built to live in a cycle of survival. You were made to create, to optimize, to elevate, to build something that doesn't burn every time pressure shows up. You can hustle all day, every day. But if your strategy is broken, your hustle is only speeding up the crash. Let's make it plain. Grind won't save you if you're grinding in the wrong direction. Some of you are working 12, 14, 16 hours a day and wondering why nothing's changing. You're exhausted. You're drained. You're frustrated, but the problem isn't your work ethic. It's your aim. You've mistaken motion for progress. Just because you're moving doesn't mean you're advancing. You can run 100 miles on a treadmill and never leave the room. That's what it's like when you hustle without strategy. Lots of energy, no destination. The world has lied to you and made you think that more effort equals more success. But that's not the truth. Effort without direction is just noise. You can't outwork a bad plan. You can't put in enough hours to cover for a lack of clarity. You're trying to force results from a flawed foundation. That's why it feels like you're pushing a boulder uphill every day. Because you are. There's no system, no roadmap, no intentional action. Just raw grind. And while grind looks impressive from the outside, it will grind you down from the inside if it's not aligned with strategy. You see, when you have a clear strategy, your hustle becomes targeted. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You start saying no to distractions and yes to what actually drives your vision forward. And here's the hook. Most people won't do that. Most people would rather stay busy than get strategic. Why? Because busy feels safe. Strategy forces accountability. It makes you look at your calendar, your habits, your patterns, and admit where you've been sloppy. But you can't fix what you won't face. You can't grow where you won't take ownership. You can grind all you want, but if your energy is scattered, your impact will be scattered too. Some of you are so deep in hustle mode that you've never even stopped to ask, what's the goal, and not the surface goal? Not the make more money or get more clients. What's the mission? What's the system that gets me there repeatedly, not just once by accident? Hustle without that answer is like trying to build a house with no blueprint, just hammering nails into random wood hoping something stands. And then when the wind comes, it all falls apart. You blame the weather, but the truth is you never had a structure. You need more than energy. You need alignment. You need more than speed. You need direction. You need more than grind. You need growth, and growth doesn't come from panic, pivoting every week, chasing every shiny object, or reacting to every minor crisis. Growth comes from designing your process, locking into your path, and working that system with focused intensity. A broken strategy multiplied by hard work just creates a faster path to burnout. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, ask yourself, am I working hard or am I working smart? Am I grinding with clarity or am I just grinding to survive? Because survival is not the same as success. Every single fire you run toward, every crisis you allow to dominate your time, is quietly stealing from your vision. You don't even realize it, but those moments you spend fixing something that broke, again, are the exact moments you were supposed to be building what lasts. You think you're making progress because you solved another problem. You think putting out the fire means you saved the day, but what you really did was delay your future. What you really did was trade the long term for the immediate. That's what fire chasing does. It tricks you into thinking you're useful when in reality you're just distracted. You're not growing if your hands are always full of emergencies. You can't climb if you're always crawling through the smoke. You can't build your empire if you're too busy putting out the flames in everyone else's. And the most dangerous part, it feels noble. It feels like service. You think they need me. But what if I told you those fires keep popping up not because they need you, but because you haven't empowered others, you haven't built the right systems, and you haven't enforced the right boundaries? Every fire you put out might make you feel like the hero in the moment, but it's burning away the time, focus, and creative energy you need to stay on your mission. You weren't born to live inside someone else's chaos. You weren't designed to carry every burden, solve every issue, or be on call for everything that goes wrong. That's not leadership. That's martyrdom and a burn. Doubt martyr can't lead anybody, but your vision. That's the thing that needs your energy. That's the thing that requires your commitment. Vision doesn't scream. Vision doesn't crash. Vision doesn't break glass to get your attention. It whispers. It requires stillness. It waits for you in the quiet moments, the moments you've been too distracted to show up for. Here's the hook. Fires are urgent, but your vision is important. And if you keep choosing what's urgent over what's important, you'll look up in 5 years and realize you've been on everybody else's team, but your own. You'll realize you've been making plays, solving problems, fixing gaps, but never building anything that's actually yours. That's the trap. That's what happens when you don't protect your priorities. You become an all-star firefighter in a life you never designed. You have to get ruthless about your time. Not every problem deserves your attention. Not every emergency is your responsibility. If you don't get serious about what matters, the world will keep dragging you into what doesn't. Fires will always exist. Chaos will always show up. But when you allow them to run your life, they don't just burn things, they burn you. You end up with nothing left to give to your own dreams because you gave it all to survive someone else's storm. That's why you feel stuck. That's why you're exhausted. Not because you're weak, but because you keep choosing what's loud over what's lasting. You can't keep living your life in a state of panic and expect to build anything sustainable. That panic, that constant reaction, that never-ending sprint, it's killing your creativity. It's blinding your vision. It's keeping you stuck in a loop where all you ever do is respond. And let me tell you something hard. As long as you're reacting, you're not creating. And if you're not creating, you're not building. And if you're not building, then what are you really doing? You're just managing chaos. You're keeping the machine running, but you're not designing anything better. You've become a manager of emergencies instead of a leader of innovation. And here's the truth nobody wants to face. Creating takes courage. It takes space. It takes discipline. You can't create from a place of exhaustion. You can't build a legacy while constantly being pulled in 100 directions by things that don't matter. But most people stay in reaction mode because it feels productive. It gives you a hit of dopamine. Solving the little problems makes you feel accomplished, even though you haven't taken a single step toward your bigger goal. But that's the trap. That's how you wake up one day and realize you've been running hard, but going nowhere. If you want to create something powerful, something meaningful, you've got to slow down long enough to hear yourself think. And some of you are afraid of that silence because you know what you'll hear. You'll hear the truth. You'll hear that you've been hiding in the busyness. You'll hear that your potential is still sitting on the shelf because you've been too distracted to pick it up. You'll hear that you're capable of more, but you've been settling for what's urgent instead of reaching for what's eternal. That kind of truth, it stings, but it also sets you free. You weren't built just to react. You were made to create, to design, to innovate, to shape the world around you, not just respond to it. And that kind of power doesn't show up in chaos. It shows up in clarity. It shows up when you carve out time to plan, to build, to strategize. It shows up when you decide that not every ping, every call, every request deserves an immediate answer. You start protecting your schedule like it's sacred, because it is. You start saying no to the noise so you can say yes to your next level. Here's the hook: reaction might keep the lights on, but creation builds the future, and the people who change the game, they don't just play defense. They draw up new plays, they build new rules, they see the mess, but they don't become it. They rise above it and bring structure to the storm. They stop waiting for peace to come and start building systems that create peace. Because greatness doesn't live in the fire, it lives in the framework that prevents it. It lives in the process that protects your energy. It lives in the focus that says, I'm done chasing, now I'm building.